Whilst the world has been in Forza Horizon 6 frenzy, I decided to revisit where my love for sim racing truly began: iRacing. Most sim racers will tell you that this sim is just a cash cow, or you have more chance of being punted by netcode rather than other drivers. But this is not that story. This is the prologue of where my PC sim racing journey began, as I'm sure it did for many of you, where the hobby grasped us with both hands and never let go. The communities it led us to, the content creation, it was quietly inspiring in the background, albeit oblivious to it at the time. The racecraft and technique lessons that we were learning with every lap. And sometimes we need to allow ourselves to return to our roots, to put our developed skills to the ultimate test. This is why iRacing will forever hold a place in my sim racing heart, the forever heart-beating drum, and that's why my journey has pulled me back in like an industrial magnet. Its UI and sheer multitude of variety once again gave me its ever comforting and outstretched hand to dive back in my trusty Mustang GT3 at Miami. On the pace lap, the nostalgia kicked in. The new, or perhaps old 15 foes I had now made on the track, all desperate and twitchy if turn one would return to stuff. Nightmares. And what was worse was that car door numbers 1, 2 and 3 were all at the back of the grid. Not through choice, but connection losses. Before a single second had passed in the actual race, I started to think more about them than looking forward. The roar of engines are about to heighten. Suddenly I remember I wasn't that good at this track the first time round. I remember that I couldn't do turn 6 and 7 without making myself dizzy with the spin, but there was no turning back now. 16 cars thunder towards turn 1 and all I can think of is, where is that brake marker on cold tyres? Please don't make me be the one that ruins this race. But then I remember, I'm no longer fresh out of the sim racing box. I'm experienced. Yeah, right. But the sick feeling in the bottom of my stomach starts to fade. Stick to the game plan, no heroics, and just finish the race. However, as sim racers, we all know that this is easier said than done. There will be an unnecessary sudden mental shift, whether it's battling for P1 or simply not to be last. That competitive edge that courses through our veins starts to take over. We inadvertently start thinking, these new pedal or wheel upgrades have immediately made me into a world-class esports driver. I could trail brake, sort of. I have practiced lowering that comfort blanket of the traction control for more exit speed. I've watched endless track guides where they make it look so easy. It is during this mental block that we fail to notice other drivers who are playing the safe game of gain positions or a meaningful early gap away from us, and even in these early stages it may already be too late. Destiny has already claimed its next victim to spend the rest of the race alone, or even worse, DNF. The return to iRacing was just that. What have the countless laps elsewhere taught me? Am I faster? Can I now survive a full race without the inevitable skill issue and binning it along the way? But most of all, am I now having more fun than ever before? But before I get a chance to answer any of these questions, I see that car door number 1 is right on my gearbox. And there he goes. The race settles down and the gaps begin to form. They're not impossible, but manageable. This is a time that we can all give ourselves a fraction of a second to reflect about race starts and the improvements we have made, no matter how small. The cold tyre management, the newly formed self-preservation, and the awareness to avoid those early lap wrecks. Let's not forget though, the new problem that has been simmering away in the background. When it suddenly boils over, like that pan on the hob, can we continue to hold it together? In the first laps and dancing on cold tyres, I find myself back in P8, losing 3 positions from our qualifying. The self-doubt immediately steps in. Have I actually learned anything? The battles continue in front of us, but my battle continues to be with myself. We make some ground up onto P7. We try to be tactical, as I can see P5 and P6 pulling away. We try to gain the head, and then we think our chance has come. They go wide. We try and sneak into the gap, but this is our nemesis corner. We can never get it right. We come out side by side. It's had a slightly better exit than me and do just pull ahead. We start to think, can we send it into the next corner? We get just alongside them just before the braking zone. Slightly outbrake ourselves, but we get through, and cleanly. See, I have a theory that this is the part of the race that we're at our most vulnerable. We've gone beyond enemy lines. We have survived the storm and the brain fog clouds start to clear. But now, we start a war with our own self-conscious, and the relative time gap burn into our eyes like the worst case of hay fever we have ever encountered. We forget about our own race and start to form questions. Should I push to catch the next car? And possibly the most dangerous of them all, the gap to the car behind. Even just a tenth lost causes us to go into self-sabotage mode, that this position will soon be gone. This constant tug of war is where the triumphs are won or lost. The dehydration from sweat and nerves alone could even start to form a mirage of non-existent cars in your mirrors. This is usually the part of the race that is usually edited out, as externally it's not appealing to the eye, but the constant internal mental battle is the most valuable lesson that can be shown. The apexes, brake markers, suddenly become alien to us like we have never practiced them before. You start to spend your entire lap obsessing over that one corner or section that you haven't got quite right. You talk yourself into that this will be the exact point that we're going to meet barrier. When we get there, we brake earlier than needed, coast more, accelerate later to solidify that safe place. But rather than seeing this as a win, that we are still in the race, we push in the next corner in some feeble attempt to regain the time we have lost. A corner that we've been nailing all race, and suddenly this new nemesis arrives. The problems start to compound. Bad corner turns into a bad sector, which turns into a bad lap. Just talk yourself into, is it better losing a couple of tenths on your tricky corner or a couple of seconds over a whole lap? Finally, your composure returns, bringing better lap times with it. However, we all know that this mental tennis match is far from over. The laps are slowly ticking away, but you find yourself losing time again. Immediately we take our eye off the ball and start to evaluate our previous lap. Did I pick up damage somewhere? What was the track temp 2 laps ago? This mental overload can cause us to overlook the easiest solution: tyres. We have been so fixated on just surviving that we have forgotten about 4 of the most fundamental car components that are actually keeping us on the track in the first place. We dial the brake marker back. We up the TC. Whatever can get us back into a little normal racing world. You know that if you don't, the tyres will continue to lose more grip faster than the middle aisle emptying in the Thursday Aldi deals. You're now starting to struggle. You don't want to give up on your push laps, as you've been eating away at the time for that next position. This is the next dangerous moment, when reality checks in again, and we feel defeated. The top 5 has slipped away for us, and we are having to settle for that. You're now willing the race to end, already thinking about the next one, where you're certain that you will do better. But the finish line seems to be getting further and further away. But then, you're thrown a lifeline. You realise that 2 positions ahead has got a drive-through. He didn't serve his slowdown. Suddenly, the top 5 is back on, but we know that we have to keep it cool. Not allow P8 back into this race. We know that we're starting to get into the head of P6. We've spent the last few corners setting up P6 for the overtake, and then our skill issue happens. The final lap, we tap the wall on the exit, but we know that he's aware that P5 is well and truly his. Perhaps he's not checking his mirrors. Perhaps in this final corner, we can do one final send. We try to go a bit wider to get the better exit, but unfortunately, it's too little, too late. The checker flag drops. There it is. The mental exhaustion is over. Your game plan of just to finish the race was obtained, with your dignity still intact, regardless of the finish position. So, where do we go from here? You need to give yourself some true, honest feedback with what is commonly known as the shit sandwich. Ask yourself, what went well? Where there is room for improvement? Followed by another positive. As the saying goes, never go to bed in an argument. Finish your session with a positive, regardless of how small you think it may seem to others. Even if you ended up winning, don't forget the shit feeling, as there is always room for improvement.